Okay. Hey, Mama.
Hey, how you
Okay,
doing?
I'm all right. So let's the purpose of this is just just to get a conversation, ask you a few questions, get a conversation on video because it's the kind of thing that 50 years from now will be timeless, right? And your
Yeah,
skin looks so good compared to ours, right? So for the record though, what's today's date? It's August 19th, 2021, 12:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Adam, how old are you today?
I'm 11.
Adam's 11, born 2010. Matthew, how old are you?
I'm 8 July 6, 2013.
Okay. And Mama, how old are you?
I'm 71, born November 15th, 1949.
1949. So you're only a little bit older than Adam and Matthew. All right. So this is unscripted, nothing too fancy, and we won't take too much of your time because what I wouldn't mind doing is doing one of these about every 2 weeks or once a month or something, just to get some footage. And then we need to do a joint one with the other nephews as well. Lean up a little bit, Matthew. All right, so let's talk about some of your earliest childhood memories. It doesn't have to be all the happy stuff. Let's just talk about where were you born?
I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia, at the University of Virginia Hospital.
And is it still called the University of Virginia Hospital now?
Yes.
And was that segregated back then or not?
Yes.
So that was segregated. So was that only for Black people or was it a ward for Blacks?
It was a ward for Black people.
Okay. Okay. And so do you think that I can't remember the official terms, but the doctors and nurses who would delivered you would have been Black?
No.
Okay, so they could have white doctors and nurses deliver you, but you would only be in the Black ward.
Yes.
I want you to get over. Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. So and you were born in Charlottesville. How far is Charlottesville from Newport News though?
I was not living in Newport News. I was living in Waynesboro, Virginia. That's where my mother lived. My biological mother, Martha, lived with her parents on Albemarle Avenue in Waynesboro, Virginia.
So how old do you think your biological mom was when you were born?
16.
Wow.
God.
16. I may have to go get my thing. Oh, Mama, I'm gonna step off for one. I'm gonna hit pause for 1 second. I'm gonna get my charger. Okay, so Mama, we'll probably do a hard stop no later than 1.
But okay.
Or do you want to do a hard stop at 1:30 or 12:30?
Well, it just doesn't make any difference, but I've got a virtual doctor's meeting at 1:30.
Okay, so we'll do between 1, because we want to go to lunch as well, between 12:30 and 12:45.
Okay.
Okay, so you're born in Charlottesville, Virginia, in a segregated hospital near Waynesboro, where your mother lived.
Yes.
And how would you describe the town of Waynesboro?
Well, it was okay. I mean, everything back then was segregated, but we didn't look at it like that.
Well, first of all, how big was it? Did you think when did you leave Waynesboro?
I left Waynesboro when I was about 3. My
Okay.
dad went into the military, went into the Army. And then after he got out the Army, he married my mother's sister, Catherine. And they took me and moved to Newport News, Virginia.
Okay.
So I really don't know a lot about Waynesboro as such, except in the summers. I would always go spend the summers when school was out with my grandmother. And the main thing I remember is that we would take a taxi to town. She would call taxis all the time to drive us to town because granddaddy worked and he had the car.
So So the house that I remember, the big red house, is that where you would go with Grandma Neely?
Yeah,
And Grandma Neely was our great grandmother.
yes.
Okay, and so they would catch a talent. And then when you, all right. So, how many brothers and sisters did you have?
Well, when I was coming up, I had 6 brothers.
Oof.
Whew. 6 brothers, and how many sisters? And then Angie was born.
Angie is younger than Tony.
Isn't that a fun fact? So one of her sisters
Yeah.
is younger than Uncle Tony. So
And
when
then
you,
I've got a sister that my dad had, who's approximately the same age as I am, Carolyn Red. She still lives in Waynesboro.
oh, she lives in Waynesboro.
Yes.
So then how did you meet PawPaw?
Hampton Newport News area had a large shipyard, the Newport News Shipbuilding Company. It employed thousands of people. Well, when Job got out of Central Piedmont, he went to Central Piedmont to get certified in welding. Well, when he came out down here in North Carolina in the Charlotte area, no one would hire him as a welder because he was Black. So finally, this man at this company told him that if he wanted to be a welder, he needed to go to the Newport News Shipbuilding Company. So he packed up and moved to Newport News. And we met because a friend that I worked with, boyfriend, worked at the shipyard and worked with Joe. So we went to a dance, and the friend invited Joe, and my friend invited me, and that's how we were introduced.
What was your friend's name? Do you remember?
Uh, I can't, but it'll come to me later.
Oh, okay. All right. And so then when was Uncle John born then? How much older is he than Tony?
Okay, John was next to the youngest. So John is in his 50s.
Okay.
Let's see. John is probably somewhere around 58.
Guys, do y'all have any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So when you and PawPaw met, when did you guys get married?
We got married on March 27th, 1970. And the way that came about, we had been dating for over a year, for about a year and a half, because he moved up there in 68. And that was the year I graduated. So I met him in December of the year that I graduated.
Graduated from high school?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So in February of 1970, Joe was looking to move back to North Carolina. And during that time down here in North Carolina, they were building the Westinghouse plant. So Job's nephew, A.W., told Job in March that Westinghouse was hiring. So Job contacted Westinghouse and came back and did an interview and everything, and he got hired on at Westinghouse. So he asked me to marry him and come with him to Westinghouse, to Charlotte, before he had to start on the new job. And that's how we ended up getting married in March.
And so, all right. So, how did AW get started at Westinghouse? He graduated from college and got a job there?
Yes.
And so it's one thing for you to give y'all perspective. Dad's oldest brothers and sisters are a lot older than him. So some of his nephews are the same age as he is.
Or older.
Or older.
What's a welder?
A welder is a person that, and we'll watch a video on it, but melts metal and forms metal together. So they can do a lot of different things. But if you got two pieces of metal and you need to make them into something, the welder will melt this part to make it into a liquid, melt this part, make it into a liquid, put it together, then they cool it off and it's stuck. And so they used to work at a turbine plant, and the turbines are the things that turn the generator in electricity, and they used to fix those. So where had you gone outside of, hello? So I can't remember exactly where we are. It's informal anyway.
We were talking about how Joe got on with Westinghouse.
So let me ask you this. Oh, I know what I asked you. Where had you been outside of Virginia before coming to Charlotte?
Nowhere.
So you
Don't just say that though. Don't just say that.
Nowhere. Well, see, you got to remember back then, everything was segregated. Plus, my dad didn't go
Blacks
anywhere.
on one side, whites on the other.
Oh.
And your dad didn't go anywhere?
He didn't ever go anywhere.
What about England?
Forget about
He
it.
did not go anywhere.
But Mom, I want to be clear about this because this is good audio. Are you telling me literally you never left the Virginia state lines?
That is correct.
I don't believe that.
The only place that we ever went was Hampton, Newport News, and Waynesboro.
Newport News.
Man, they didn't even decide. Look up, Matthew. They didn't even decide to go no trip to DC. So, what would you have thought about anything going on outside of America? Say like if
I
you was a
didn't
teenager.
have any opinion except I was alive when they had the Cuba Missile Crisis with John F. Kennedy, and I was terrified that we were going to get blown up. And then I was alive when they had Hurricane Hazel, which devastated our area. You might look those two things up with the boys.
Uh-huh. And then I thought you were going to say Vietnam.
Well, Vietnam, I was in high school. I graduated from high school in 1968, and Vietnam was going on.
So that would have been the things that you remember most about. Matthew, slide over. Watch yourself for a second. Hold on a second.
I might need to sit in the middle.
That would have been the things you remember most. Actually, yeah, let's do that. That would be the things you remembered most about anything international.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you come to Charlotte, and what did you think about Charlotte?
I was amazed at the size of the city. And also, when I was in Virginia, in school, I was always very smart, had good grades. And I went to the telephone company in Virginia and took their test to be a telephone operator. Well, in Virginia, they flat out said they would not hire me because I was Black. And
so let's unpack that for a second. What do you mean? Like, how does that conversation happen?
She said I scored the highest on the test as anybody had ever scored. But she was prohibited from hiring me because I was, at that time, they called it Negro.
But why would they even allow you to take the test?
Because the government required that they allow you to take the test.
And most people are not going to do well anyways.
Right. But they didn't require that they hire you.
Okay. And so then she's basically saying, between us, here's the deal.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I had a job as a
But do you think, to the best of your memory, do you think this person is telling you that as, I'm sorry, but my hands are tied, or no, we're not doing this?
I'm sorry, my hands are tied. Because she prefaced it with, you scored higher than anybody that ever took the test.
Yeah. So then how does that make you feel? Like, I mean, I can't.
How that work?
Like, how does that make you feel?
Well, let me tell you how I was vindicated. I came down to North Carolina with your dad. I went to the telephone company down here, took the test. They offered me a job the same day.
Really?
Yes.
And what were you doing for the telephone company?
I was a telephone operator.
And to explain that to them.
All right. Back then, if you wanted to make a long distance call, you had to dial the operator. And the operator would come on and say, may I help you? And you tell the operator that you wanted to make a call to 704-666-2323, something like that. Well, the operator would have to plug in 2 cables, one for the incoming and one for the outcoming, and dial the number for you. Neil can go online and show you an old operator call board.
So let them understand this. You see how, if I want to call mom back then, I would call a person,
Yeah.
the operator. That person would get on the phone and say, how can I help you? Then you would tell them, you give them the instructions, and they'd be on this massive switchboard.
Oh.
And they would take that cable, put it here, take that cable, put it here, and then dial the number. And you had to do that every time. But how would you know where to put the cables?
Because only certain calls came into certain areas of a switchboard. So wherever you were, you would only get calls for your switchboard.
And how hard was it?
It wasn't hard. The hardest part is every call you had to make, you had to fill out this punch card. And then every so often, the supervisor would come by and pick up your punch cards.
So, all right, we're going to wrap it up on the technology thing, and then we're going to have more of these conversations. What is your earliest memory of a computer?
The earliest memory of a computer was that the pictures that I saw, a computer was the size of a room.
Oh my God.
Look at this one.
And it only had what they call a speed of 300 baud, B-A-U-D, which is super, super, super slow. But that was the technology.
That's kind of
What
bad
year?
technology.
Even back then, there were only telephones that had the handle and a circle of numbers that you had to dial.
So then,
But what year?
yeah, but what year are you talking about? Did you remember the computer?
Yeah.
It was after high school.
So then give me this, couple more questions on this. What I can't picture at work, like what's office work like without computers?
You use the typewriter.
Oh,
You didn't
yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah.
computer. And if you made a mistake, you had to type it all over again. Or if your boss changed what he wanted to say, you had to type it all over again.
Oh my
But
God.
like, what I can't picture is let's say that y'all want to have a staff meeting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. You know how we just hit a button and put it into everybody's calendar?
Yeah.
What would y'all do?
Well, the boss would just tell you that we're going to have a meeting. It was no paper correspondence or nothing like that.
Let me tell you stop it, Matthew. I'm gonna tell you one of the earliest memories I have. We had email, but let me give you an example of something I used to do that would be considered completely and utterly archaic now. And I actually hated doing it. Are you ready? So when I was at Citigroup,
What?
at a bank, one of my first jobs at a bank, we used to get this industry publication. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Every day you get an industry publication. I worked in the power sector, so it'd be about utility companies. And it might say, you know, such and such company bought this power plant, or the weather in this power plant this part of the city went down, or whatever, like a news, but it was a one-page bulletin, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But the bosses didn't want to read it.
Mm-hmm.
They only wanted to get the snippets. And so they thought it would be a good idea to have an analyst each week for their 5 days. So we would rotate, read it, and then read the summary of it on a voicemail. And then we could send the voicemail to everybody in the morning. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was painful because you knew your voicemail was going to go out to everybody.
Yeah.
And it would be embarrassing if it wasn't right. So you would sit there, and each person is different, right? Some people probably didn't care, but I'll read it and then I'll have to try to be perfect. It was like a newsreader. Today is March 15, 2021. Here are the headlines. Such and such happened. And then you'll get all the way down, you make a mistake. Today was March. But today, if you think about though, like the news now is so readily available that no one would ever imagine having someone read this to them. Right? It's so readily available. You got the news, but back then you didn't have like the news on the internet so searchable like it is now. You know, so that's just one example.
Well, let me tell you about my computer.
All right.
Back then, we had what they call FTP protocol, file transfer protocol. You couldn't just go online like you can on a computer now and type Zoom and hit the button and it would go to a Zoom. You would have to know the FTP of Zoom. So it would be FTP, Zoom, something, this long thing of words or symbols or whatever. You would have to be able to type that in order to go somewhere on the internet.
But then
this was before Bill Gates made Windows.
Yeah.
Windows revolutionized computers.
So the last thing, to your earliest memories, Mama, 2 more things, I'm gonna let you go. What did we do? I always joke with the kids that we didn't have Chromebooks. Our video games weren't that compelling, even though we did play them. What did we do during the summer?
Mostly y'all played outside. Job had the football goal out there. Y'all played, and you remember Job had the ping pong table in the garage. You all played football out there in that field where Kent lives now. You rode bikes, all of that.
Isn't it crazy, like compared to today's kids? Because the thing is, it's not even about being like we're better than them. It's just that our entertainment options just weren't that good in the house.
And entertainment options were excellent. That's why it's so many obese children now, because they do not go outside and play.
No, Mama, I mean the entertainment options compared to what they have in terms of the technology.
Oh yeah, but you don't miss something you didn't have.
Exactly, but I'm saying like today between the Xbox, see their video games are like movies.
Yeah.
Like even if we wanted to play Atari all day, it would get boring after a little bit because all your little man would just be doing the same thing back and forth. You know what I mean? We would play
And it
cards.
wasn't boring.
Huh?
You all played Atari Pac-Man all day.
Yeah, true. But you get my point. I'm saying, like, we didn't have Netflix. Like, let me give you an example.
Wait, what in that?
Oh, years. I was in London, and then I gotta go with this. Like, Mama, what about how many TV stations did we have growing up? Do you remember?
Well, when I was growing up, when I was a kid, when we first got a TV station, we didn't have a 3 stations, and they all turned off at midnight.
Oh God.
We only had 3 stations, but even when I came up,
Remember how many you all had growing up, but you
we
didn't
only
have
had we had about 6 to 8 stations,
Yeah, something like that.
and then cable came out. Okay,
Right.
so let me just end with this. When my earliest memories was 6 to 8 stations, and that's being generous because I don't want to exaggerate. It might have been around 5, and most of the ones wasn't no good. So it was really about 2. And you remember that TV we used to have where it had 2 knobs? So you put one on the primary knob, and then you go on the bottom knob and twist it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then think about it. There was no remote control.
Oh.
So you had to get up every time you had to turn the station. And you
That's
couldn't
why
record it. And
Adam,
the TV was tiny.
Adam, that's why we had kids, because we had to have a remote
You
control.
think you got to get up now? We had to get up every time they went. But you didn't flip stations that much because it really wasn't nothing. It was no choices. But they had TV Guide.
What?
Yeah, they had a TV Guide booklet.
So imagine
But
this.
that was later. And when the TV Guide booklet came out, I think we had maybe about 12 stations.
Imagine this, Adam. There was a booklet that you bought every week. We still got them. They still got them, but it's more of a magazine now. Every week, your mama would buy it, and it would tell you everything that's going to come on TV that week. And that's how you look to see, oh, okay, I want to make sure I watch this. I want to because you had to be there at that time. There was no recording. Then they came out with satellite, and that's when Kenny and them got satellite.
Okay.
That was my first understanding that there were more stations out there. Go ahead.
That's a world record, world's shortest book. We only had like 5 stations.
No, but it would have the week, everything program. Then they came out with satellite, and I wanted satellite. We wanted satellite so bad. Do you remember satellite?
Yeah, but my first foray into cable, Tony bought me what was that thing Tony bought that I could record?
The VHS?
Camera?
Yeah, what was that? What was that system he bought for me?
We? You would know. Oh,
It
yeah.
was Ty.
Oh, Tivo.
Tivo. Tony bought me Tivo.
But Tivo was way after cable.
Wait, Tivo?
Stop right there. Tivo was the main thing Tivo was the introduction to being able to record live TV.
Right. I never did have satellite before Tivo.
Okay, that might make sense.
I didn't know anything about all those other stations.
But you know what? You know what it is? You know what I'm getting mixed up? As network TV became more modern, they added more stations.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying the TV Guide had about 12 or 14 or something stations. Then,
so they started adding networks like, when the Wayne brothers, they like TBS, like they started adding those networks that were part of, you didn't need cable.
Right.
I remember
And
that.
that's
So,
when you needed the TV guide to see what was coming on.
so to give you perspective, Adam, when I was really young, like y'all's age, we had 4 to 6 stations. Then the network started adding more and more stations. Then they came out with satellite where you could order satellite, but we didn't get that. And then finally they came out with cable. The reason they call it cable is because they lay the actual cables underneath the ground. Okay. And we got to get ready to go. But yeah, we're going back down memory lane. And tell them about sports games. We only you only could watch, there was only like 1 or 2 games you could watch. It was no just ubiquitous watching every sport game.
No, you only could watch the sports games that were broadcast on like CBS, NBC, and ABC.
What?
Those are the network stations.
Those are most.
Those were the main 3. Those are the main 3 network stations. Those are the only things you could watch them on. That's the only station that sports was broadcast on.
And Mama, when was your first time ever thinking about soccer?
Oh, God.
When Adam started playing.
So had you ever did anybody ever say the word soccer to you when we were kids?
No.
Oh, God.
What about like Bethel, Clover? You know, the only time I even remember soccer, Mama, is I only have 3 memories of soccer. You ready?
Uh-huh.
The first was you have to, in school in Bethel, we had to do some kind of book report and you had to pick famous people, and somebody picked Pele.
Oh, God.
Okay.
The second time I heard, no, it's 4 times. The second time I heard the word soccer in any context was in PE class. And I'll never forget Coach Cole. He passed away.
Oh, what happened?
He was a teacher, but he died. He just died young.
What happened?
I'll never forget him trying to show us how to kick the ball. And now in retrospect, I know that he was still kind of kicking it like a football.
Okay.
Because the coaches didn't even play, right? It was just part of PE.
Yeah.
Then my next memory was watching ABC World News, and they did 10 seconds in 1984 when the U.S. national team made it to the quarterfinals or something and played Germany and lost in the World Cup. And they still only gave it like 10 seconds.
Okay.
And then I think my final memory was Vince. You remember, what's that? You remember them Italian, they're American, but they're kind of Italian, Vince and Anthony, the little boys that we were friends with. One of them used to come and pick me up for football practice.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He was in the yearbook. He was our kicker. And he was in the yearbook for soccer. And the only reason I even paid attention to it because I knew I was friends with him.
Okay.
And this is the final, which brings me to one more thing, Mama. How did y'all feel about teenagers and driving? Because he used to pick us up to take us to practice.
I was glad when Tony learned how to drive because I was running to pick up you, Jeremy, and Tony. And then I would have to go at night and get Tony or you from football. You know how I would have to sit out there at the school and wait on you. So
Yeah.
I was too glad when Tony learned how to drive.
But the thing about it, Mama, and that's only your kids. You had to pick up other people's kids.
Yeah.
Mama, but the thing about it is, this is the last fun fact. And in retrospect, this is the craziest thing in the world. It shows you how different the world has changed, even in my short generation. Adam, can you believe the juniors and seniors used to drive the school buses?
Oh, wow. What, junior?
In high school.
Oh.
So someone like Ozark.
So they didn't have driver's license?
Yeah, they had driver's license, but I'm saying your school bus driver would be somebody, and they would get off the bus and go to high school. The last stop would be at the high school.
Yeah.
If they did that now,
So many kids would die.
no, they wouldn't. people would be in an uproar because you kind of step up to responsibility. You know what I mean? Because the bus can't go over 35 miles an hour. But back then on those country roads, it really wasn't a lot of traffic. The biggest issue would be just them being responsible.
Well, see, kids weren't as crazy back then as they are now, so the bus driver didn't have to be also a security guard. He didn't have to stop people from fighting. He didn't have to do all of this other stuff that they have to do now with these unruly children. The kids got on the bus, sat down, talked, and rode to school.
That was it. All right, Mama, we're going to keep this going. This has been great. And I'm going to share it with everybody too so they can see it.
Okay.
And love you. Say goodbye, boys.
Love you too. Bye-bye,
And enjoy your meal. We're
sweetheart.
going to have some lunch. Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.